So, Steve, you were given the task there of answering the 10-year-old question set by Heidi Miller at Cybos in 2004. 10 years on, do we still have the complexity that she was challenging the industry to get rid of? You started the thing by saying, yes, it is still as complicated as it was then.
Yeah, it might even be a little more complicated, partly because of the increasing regulation, partly because of this technology exploding yet again upon the scene and how it changes how interactions happen. And I think the sheer size of the industry and what's going on, those all make things more complicated, or feel more complicated. And I don't think banks have done a good job of saying, okay, how do I streamline this? How do I make this simpler and easier to understand for me and for my customers?
But you also got to the end of the speech by having gone through various points and said it's not overly complicated, and if we do the right things, we can actually improve things for the customers and for the industry itself.
Yeah, and I think the first thing is don't panic. I think people tend to panic when new things happen. They don't seem to like change, even though change is a very natural process. One of the things we use, in my company is, we say, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So like regulatory pressures is something, if you say, okay, that's a lot of pressure, and on top of it, but if you change that and say, how can I make this an opportunity, you can actually come up with new business models. For example, money service businesses, we have changed the way we think about that, and we've made that into a very profitable part of the bank, adding a lot of value for our customers.
Mm-hmm. And that, the Douglas Adams "Don't Panic" idea. You also had some Bob Dylan quotes in there.
Yes.
There
must be some way out of here, and I think the way out of complexity is to follow your customer and understand what they're doing. So, easy ones there are, if you look at how people do things today, mobile is the world, right? People aren't buying PCs. Businesses might be, but people are buying mobile phones, smartphones, they're buying tablets, and they expect to get information and do things wherever they are, whenever they want to do those things. And if you're a bank, you say, well, okay, so that's how they're going to want to bank. So how do I take advantage of that to provide better value to my customers? And so I think following their voice is the key. It's one of the keys.
And within that, the mobile revolution, as everybody keeps calling it, there are opportunities to play to the industry's strength. And one of the things you talked about was cybersecurity, which is don't be paranoid about.
Yeah. So I think for us, I think trust and security is the foundation of the banks and banking industry. And when people talking about mobile and the perceptions it's not safe, and some of those things are probably well founded, but if you're a bank and your world is around trust, we probably have been spending 160 years thinking about security and trust. Maybe it's a little different than when they were riding the stagecoaches across the plains in the U.S. and they had shotguns to protect the money. Now we have to protect cyber money and money that's online. And I think we've been very good at that. And I think people don't get enough credit for that, and we have to stay focused on that.
So look at the things you're good at, listen to the voice of the customer, don't panic, and the other thing you said I liked was look up, and because people are too focused on the immediate things, and don't whine about regulators. That was
I think looking up is important. I think we tend to look down at our jobs, we're looking down at our desk. People tend to be very focused on budgets, and that's fine because you got to run your business, you got to do things that you need to do. But there's a part that says look up, and where are people going? You got to be looking at the horizon and getting your company to all head in the same direction. There might not be a very clear path to start with, but you want everyone heading east, or you want everyone heading west, right? But you don't want some people heading east and some people heading west, right? Because that's not going to work for you very well, right? So I think that's pretty important, having a vision that people can aspire to and see how what they do connects to that vision is how you build motivation to get things done. I also think the second thing is that you can't stand still, even though we all seem to want to. And so you've got to get up and say you've got to be trying these new things. You have to have a process and a culture that says it's okay to try new things. And they're not all going to work. That's okay, because you're learning. You learn as much from the things that work well as you do from the things that don't work well.
Okay, let me end this by asking you to setting out a challenge for the person who's going to follow up your speech in 10 years' time when they're looking back at the legendary Steve Ellis speech. Which bit do you hope they've actually achieved?
I hope when we're at this conference 10 years from now, we're talking about, rather than just payments and how banks do things, we're focusing on how customers do things and how we help them get things done. That's what I'd like to see. When people are asking questions about, well, what do my customers want? And these are the things they want, and here's how I'm going to give it to them.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much, Steve.
Good, thank you.